Mikaela Hoover, good to see you. Welcome to Popternative.
See you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's pretty crazy because, Tony Chopper has taken over the internet, which is crazy. I feel like my feeds are just Tony Chopper. It's an amazing thing to think about, right?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love him so much, so I'm so happy.
Absolutely. It was a big deal when it was announced at Tudum that Tony Chopper was going to be kind of involved with the live action season 2 of One Piece. I want
Uh-huh.
to know, take me through the kind of steps of initially having those conversations even before kind of going in and doing the mocap and the voiceover of like what Tony Chopper will look like in the live action, the conversations. What's that like specifically, even before kind of diving in?
Well, when I auditioned for him, I didn't know who he was. The breakdown said that he was a little forest creature who had been outcast his whole life. And I wasn't familiar with One Piece. So I created this little character that was like this slimy, one-eyed, really ugly, like hunched over all the time character. And so I had no idea that Chopper was cute. I mean, he's so cute, and I had literally no idea. I think that the first time that I saw a Chopper was at Tudum. And I was like, oh my gosh, am I playing him wrong? Because I'm playing him as this like really ugly little monster. And he's so cute, but I think that's what worked.
Does the mindset change immensely when it's like doing voice acting or mocap compared to kind of live action and everything? Because I know like you go and record in a studio, but it is all storytelling at the end of the day. So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, it didn't change anything for me. You know, on Guardians, I got to go in when I played at the Bunny Rabbit floor and uh do the mocap there on set. And I would say doing the mocap in a studio here in LA felt very similar to that.
Mhm.
I got to act off the actor. We're doing it differently this season, but for the second season, because everything was so new, I got to act off the screen and off the characters on the screen. So I felt like I was part of the Straw Hats already, and so it didn't feel different. It felt almost like I was on set. And the way the producer and the animators and everybody it felt they brought it together in such a beautiful way that it felt like I was there.
Absolutely. When you get to work in worlds like Guardians and One Piece, where there's so much incredible source material that came before that project and everything with the series and the anime and the animations and everything, what is your relationship with original source material of something you're working on? Like with One Piece, like do you think about the fact that there's like previous source material before the live action where you kind of get to join that world, or you try not to think about that at all?
I try not to think about it because then I'll think I feel really grateful that I know I'm gonna get people are gonna be like, oh, for saying this, but I feel really grateful that I didn't know how um popular it was. I
Mhm.
mean, I knew it was huge, but I didn't know that it was as massive as it is. And I feel grateful for that because I think that if I would have known that, there would have been so much pressure.
Mhm.
And I just want to go in and play the character as best as I can without having that pressure of like, this is how he's supposed to be, and this is how he is in the anime. And we're not based off the anime, we're based off the manga. So um I just like that I got to really go in and create this character not having any real expectations and not thinking about like, oh, this is such a big deal.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of go to the beginning of, the interview. You're talking about, the journey of, voicing Tony Chopper and everything and getting in there and the mood and everything. Can you talk a little bit more about that journey of, the voice that we, got to, like see and hear in the series, like getting to that point? Was it a little process where you were figuring out a lot of things? Like, what did you kind of figure out that voice, early on in the process after trying a few things? Like, what was that like for you until you got like, you thought was like the right voice, so to speak?
So because of the audition and the way that I pictured him, and it's actually the way that I still picture Chopper, which I think is really cool because Chopper doesn't see himself as cute. So Chopper sees himself as a monster, and I always, until I see Chopper on screen, I always think of him as this monster because that was my first impression of this character. So um, when I got the audition, it was the most fun I've ever had doing an audition because I was playing around with different voices and trying to find him and trying to find the vulnerability in him. And I think that, I added because he was a little boy, I added in this like gruffness to him that
Yeah.
made him sound like more of a little boy. And it's a gruffness that I do when I'm really excited. And I added in this vulnerability of never feeling good enough and never feeling seen. And that carried through. Now, when I did To Doom, I I didn't know. I mean, I knew it was One Piece and I knew it was Chopper, but I went in after getting booked for the role. I went into to Doom very fast. I mean, it all was like a very, very fast
Yep.
process. So I was like, do I do it how I did it when I booked the role for producers? Do I do it, a different way? Like, so I think that, it was a collaborative process with, the showrunner Joe and Ian and Becky and Steve, and we all even Teddy, like we all kind of found like, okay, maybe too much gruffness here, like we kind of found it. And Chopper kind of goes in and out of that roughness. Like I think that when he feels more like there's different times when he is more like that, but and then there's times when he's a little bit not. So we got to kind of find it together, which I think is really beautiful.
Absolutely. And we don't forget that, he is a reindeer. So we can never forget that, which is very important.
And a little boy reindeer, so he, finding that like I said, like when I get excited, I get it, like I get into that, like I have that naturally in my voice. And so playing into that, but also stepping back in places and finding that happy balance.
Absolutely. And it was really cool. Not only did you voice Chopper, you did the mocap as well, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And, so cool. So happy for you. So amazing. I love Tony Chopper. I love One Piece season 2. Now streaming worldwide on Netflix. They can check it out. Mikaela, thank you so much for your time. It was so great chatting with you.
Much. It was so nice to meet you. So grateful for this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Mikaela Hoover, who voices Tony Chopper in One Piece, and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.